Hey Spuds, how's it going? Welcome back to another video of the channel. I don't know, but welcome either way. And today we are going to be looking at some transphobic websites. Basically, people and organizations who have dedicated their time and their lives and sometimes a lot of their money and a lot of other people's money to being transphobic. I'm not really sure why people would do this, but they are on a mission to destroy the lives and the rights of a marginalized group within society for no other reason than what seems to be ignorance, misunderstanding, and fear of the unknown. So I wanted to go through some of these websites today, and the aim is to call out the misinformation, not shout out the website, so I will be blurring the name and not giving out the URL and everything, because we want to look at what they're saying and why it's wrong and why it's damaging, rather than being like,
hey, this website, yeah, go look at that one.
I don't want to increase their traffic at all. I just want to call bullshit on the bullshit that fills their pages. Are you ready? Saying are you ready? Before we get into that, I did want to talk about something a lot happier first and give a little shout out to my wonderful Pud plush dinos. For the next couple of weeks, these plushies are on sale. First up, we have the Trans Pride plushie. Look at that. He literally embodies the trans flag, from the toe beans to the spikes down his back. And he comes with a little rainbow egg, as well as, wait for it, an asexual egg and a non-binary egg. And you can interchange these because he's got Velcro on his hands and then there's Velcro on the egg, so you can swap them out. You can like take the rainbow one off and put the asexual one on if you want to. I think he's very cute. I think he might be my favorite. And I can say that because I'm trans. I can have a favorite. Next up, we have my second favorite Pud, very close second favorite. And this is a slightly more subtle nod to Pride with the progress flag colors in spikes down his back. And these are going to be in a random order, so each Pud is special. And he's also got little rainbow colors on his feet. And he comes with a bisexual egg, which Shaba put on because bisexual, you know, she's got to make it all about her. I'm kidding. But he also comes with a trans egg and a pansexual egg. I wanted to do all of the Pride flags in eggs for all of the plushies, but I was limited to 3 eggs per plush. So I hope you like the selection. If you want to get all 6 eggs, you can get both Pud plushies right now. And there is a special discount if you do. And finally, before we get on with the video, I am going to be donating a portion of the money I get for these Pud plushie sales towards LGBTQ plus charities. So a portion of Rainbow Pud sales will go towards Rainbow Railroad, which is an amazing charity that helps LGBTQ plus people get out of dangerous places basically and find safety. And a portion of the sales of Trans Pud will be going towards Not a Phase, a fantastic organization supporting trans people. So yeah, if you want to go check them out, you can scan this handy QR code that you've probably seen throughout this bit of the video, or you can go to Makeship and search for Jammidodger, or click the link in the description box or pinned comment. I'm making it easy, but there's no pressure if you're not interested and you don't want to get them. It's totally fine. And now that the happy cute bit is out the way, let's call out some transphobia. Yay. So the first website we're going to look at is one that is a little bit more well known. It's been around for a while. It is also one of the websites I believe that was used to recruit parent participants for the rapid onset gender dysphoria study. I say parent participants, the only participants were the parents recruited from transphobic websites. This, I'm pretty sure, was one of them, and it does have trend in the name, so you know it's going to be fantastic. Are you ready? No child is born in the wrong body. Okay, what sections have they? They've got a home, about us, supporting them. See, a lot of these websites, I don't think are set up as formal charities or anything, but they have like a donate to us button. Let's do this random cause to try and stop trans women doing this little thing, and they're raising so much money in order to do that. And it's like, if you truly believe that your main reason for doing this is protecting kids or fighting for equal rights for women and feminism and everything like that, then why are you not doing things that would actually support those causes? Because taking away trans rights will not help protect kids, will not help women's rights progress, because funnily enough, they're not at odds with each other. Anyway, very bizarre. So you can support them. The science of that must be fascinating. Resources, autism, and gender identity. Of course, no transphobic website that was particularly one that seems to be aimed towards kids. Well, not towards kids, but about trans kids. No transphobic website like that would be complete without trying to link it to autism in some way. Treatments and side effects, articles, blog. My body is me. My body is me. Sure, yes. Well done. Contact us. Shop. They have a shop. Cast review, of course, cast review. And then some terms and conditions. So what does it say on the front page? See, this image. I'm sure this website has been around for quite a while, like pre-hitting the 2020s, so at least 5 or 6 years, right? And they have used this same photo. Nothing about the layout of this website has changed. So many other things haven't changed about it. Anyway, welcome to the website. Then you can listen to the founder talking about the harms of gender ideology for children and young people. Ew. Teenagers have the right to explore their identities. It's their job, but adults should not be joining in. Schools should not be telling girls they're boys and boys they're girls. What do they think is happening? Like, oh, hello, transgender people exist.
You cannot be trying to trans the children. How dare you?
That's where their brains go, I swear. They seem to think that any mention of people being trans is an automatic attempt at trying to make kids transgender, as if schools are becoming some trans factory where kids go in thinking they're one gender and come out the other gender, and or some think they're non-binary. Like, it's all just a massive conspiracy theory. Learning about something doesn't make you that thing. So learning that people can be gay will not make a straight kid gay, but it will potentially make them more accepting if any of their friends come out as gay, and it will make that gay kid who was always gonna be gay, whether they learnt about it there or not, it will make them feel more supported. It will give them the language, it will give them the confidence. And so all you do by depriving kids of the knowledge that there are different ways of being human and living in this world is you delay when they are going to truly find themselves. And you can also breed things like shame. I don't understand. If we can raise a generation who are aware of all the different identities people can be and are grown up to be accepting of that and realize that if that's them it's okay, why is that a problem? It doesn't make more people LGBTQ plus to know that LGBTQ plus people exist. It's such a bizarre thought. We have failed this generation of kids. Oh, the Tavistock's experimentation with puberty blockers, a collection of 5 articles by, and then they say Dr. Michael Biggs, Department of Sociology, University of Oxford. And it's like, I feel like often, this is all hypothetical by the way, because I can't say specifically to these places, but what I often feel is that they're like, here is a doctor who said this, and then it turns out to be someone with a PhD in philosophy or sociology. And I'm not shitting on that. I have a PhD in psychology. I could say a collection of 20 articles by Dr. Jamie Raines, and I feel like often they write that because then the assumption is when people see doctor, they think medical doctor, and when it's linked to Tavistock and puberty blockers, it automatically gives that a lot more weight and seemingly a lot more trustworthy. And then it says in the Department of Sociology, but a lot of people have already gone,
a doctor. I will listen to this person.
Department of Sociology at the University of Oxford. So I'm assuming this is the same person. And I'm reading through his profile, and you'd think for somebody who wrote 5 articles all about the Tavistock and puberty blockers, there'd be a lot of interest and speciality in trans topics. So if we search for trans, we get transform, and that is literally it. That is the only mention of the word trans. It's not in relation to transgender. So that's clearly not his specialty. So at this point, I'm kind of like not inclined to be super trustworthy of this. Although on the surface, to a parent not knowing anything, they're like, oh look, a doctor who clearly must specialize in this has written about puberty blockers at this gender identity clinic. And then he turns out to not be a medical doctor but have a PhD in sociology, and in his very own profile on the University of Oxford page have no mention of trans or transgender people. So where's the specialty there? Why him? They call themselves the leading organisation in the call for evidence-based healthcare for children and young people suffering gender dysphoria and for factual science-based teaching in schools. The thing is, the facts and the science support the existence of trans people. I don't understand why there would be any other route to take. Established in 2015. Is that how old that photo at the top is and just the whole style of the website? Okay, I'm sorry, but established in 2015, they've led the way in advocating for the rights of children to reject gender stereotypes and be who they really are without discrimination, labeling, or medical intervention to fix them. Now, the thing is, when it comes to gender dysphoria and trans people, like with any LGBTQ plus person, you cannot conversion therapy them out of their identity. Conversion therapy does not work. If somebody is trans, they are trans, and that is how they are born. So if somebody realizes they are trans in childhood, That is how they've been born. Like, trans adults were also trans kids, whether they knew it or not. For this website to say that they advocate children to be able to be who they really are without discrimination, whilst literally creating a website and a whole organization aimed towards discriminating against trans people, particularly trans kids here, is the utmost level of irony. Like, it's actually ridiculous. And in terms of like labeling a medical intervention to fix them, I don't know what the hell they think is happening to children who go see gender identity clinics, because those clinics are there to support and guide, to help parents understand what their child is going through, to help the child understand what they're feeling, and to help the child understand that they are not wrong and that they are okay to feel the way they're feeling. And also, what happens for children, right, is they can wear what they want. So therefore, rejecting the gender stereotypes that they are expected to conform to. That's literally what trans kids are doing anyway, and they should be supported in that. So allowing a child to present in a way that feels comfortable to them, allowing them to try different pronouns and a different name and go to school as the gender that they are. There is no harm in allowing a child to do that. All that happens is you have a child who's like, hey, my parents let me explore who I am. My parents let me be my true self. In terms of medical intervention, that comes later on, and it used to happen in terms of puberty blockers, but those have now been indefinitely banned in the UK. But puberty blockers essentially are a medication that have been used for decades. We have a lot of research about puberty blockers, and they've been used to treat precocious puberty in cis kids for a really long time, and have been used in the treatment of trans kids to delay puberty, to allow them more time to figure out their feelings, to not have to go through extra surgeries in their transition. So for example, I, a trans man, if I had had puberty blockers, I wouldn't have had to have top surgery. So it would have saved me a lot of hassle and pain and dysphoria. This medication would have been prescribed in tween years to mid-teenage years. So we're not talking about 7, 8-year-old children, we're talking about 13, 14, 15. And then after that, hormones come at 18. Very rarely, sometimes 16 or 17. And the thing is, we trust cis kids. We're not putting every child on puberty blockers until they're adults and they can be like, yes, this is my gender. We're trusting cis kids to go through permanent changes. There is a far higher chance of a trans kid going through the wrong puberty and then having to have surgeries than there is regret rate of people transitioning, because the regret rate is 1%. So when it's like medical intervention to fix them, they're literally talking about socially transitioning for kids, and then puberty blockers have been banned now. So what medical intervention are they talking about? And even when they were there, it was so difficult to get hold of, and literally they are still being prescribed to cis kids with precocious puberty. There is nothing wrong with the medication. It's transphobia that has stopped trans kids from accessing it. We believe that children with gender dysphoria deserve evidence-based treatment and have a right to the same duty of care as any other child. Evidence-based treatment. Have they looked at the evidence? On the GLAAD website, every major medical association supports healthcare for transgender people and youth. The facts finally catch up to states passing discriminatory bills. Medical association statements in support of healthcare for transgender people and youth. Look, every major medical association and leading World Health Authority supports healthcare for transgender people and youth. They're also increasingly speaking out against the disinformation being spread by opponents of this care. The following have issued statements in support of healthcare for transgender people and youth. So look, you can see all of them here. Every single one, all of these have offered statements that support the gender affirming healthcare approach. So if this website is like, we believe gender dysphoria deserves evidence-based treatment, they are ignoring the evidence. The evidence-based treatment is the gender affirmative approach, which ranges from anything from socially transitioning, so presenting in a way that you're comfortable with and changing your name and your pronouns, to puberty blockers, to hormones, to surgeries. And then here they are having the classic anti-trans stance of, look at the massive boom in trans people. And it's funny that when people start being accepted for who they are, and other people growing up can see this acceptance and can see the increase in knowledge and awareness and are given the language younger, that then they realize who they are. It's not about making people trans, it's about giving people the language to know if they are trans or not. So I watched a documentary at 16, and that's what made it click for me. It did not make me trans. It did not influence me, it did not convince me. What it did is let me know that this way I've been feeling, there's a reason. And there is an explanation, and this is the language, and this is what you need to look into, because this is who you are and always have been. I'd always felt that way. It would have happened eventually. There would have been another time I would have found it out. But for me, it was 16. And so if I could have found this out when I was like 8 or 9 years old, because my earliest memories are around knowing that I was a boy. And then as I grew older, being confused about why I was different to the other boys. And that is a hell of a lot more confusing for a child and difficult and horrible to go through than cis kids learning what the word trans means. Just to really help that point, this is a graph showing the increase in left-handedness as it started to become more accepted and it stopped being like trained out of kids because it was seen as wrong. So we see the exact same pattern in something else, that when you're suddenly not bombarded with information that it's wrong or the fact that it exists is hidden from you.
Oh wow, look at how many more children are left-handed. There's a left-handed epidemic.
Nobody said that because it was recognized of like, oh, we've stopped being shitty towards left-handed people. We actually let children write with the hand that comes naturally to them and look at the number of left-handed people that actually exist. That's what's happening with trans people. That's what this graph shows. Boys and girls should be able to wear what they like and have whatever interest they choose without adult interpretation through the lens of a non-scientific ideological belief that human beings are born with an innate sense of being male or female, which is inevitably based on sex stereotypes. It's literally not. These organizations and people who run these groups and people who believe in these groups, they are the ones that so strongly believe in gender stereotypes, and they're the ones putting it on the trans community and saying the
Trans community are reinforcing these stereotypes. Oh, it's them.
when actually look at the trans community, there is so much variation in gender expression, and the trans community, if there is anybody in a room that fully understands the separation between gender identity and gender expression and sexual orientation, it's a trans person. Like, we get it. We're not trying to say that because we were a kid who liked playing football, we must be a trans boy. It's nothing to do with that. It is literally the fact that there is scientific evidence and scientific theories with evidence to show that there is a separation between the brain and the body, and that's how trans people exist. I just wish cis people would stop making shit up about the trans community. In school, acceptance of a boy who likes to play with dolls as a girl is no acceptance at all. Acceptance of a lesbian adolescent girl as a straight boy is no acceptance at all. This approach only serves to reinforce restrictive and harmful stereotypes. Affirmation is not kind. It affirms to a child that they are the wrong sex and encourages a child's belief that their body needs medically changing. Medical intervention can only ever affect cosmetic change. The child's sex remains the same. I mean, let's talk about sex characteristics. A trans person isn't going to sit there and say, like, you know, as a trans man, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm identical to a cis man. I'm also not identical to a cis woman. There's so much variation in human sex. And what about intersex people? And then look at primary and secondary sex characteristics. And if you boil sex down to this thing or that thing, it's like, okay, well, that surgery stops that. Natural variation can create differences within cis people of this thing. None of it can apply as a blanket rule and work in all contexts without excluding some people you want to exclude and including other people you don't want to include. So it's all very reductionist, and that's where a lot of this comes from. And on the affirmation point, I think they're referring to like gender affirmation and gender affirmative care, as we've seen, is the medically approved approach, because the other approach to gender affirmation is reparative therapy, which is essentially conversion therapy, which does not work, is banned in some places, should be banned everywhere, and leads to a lot of trauma. So are they advocating for conversion therapy? Kind of sounds like it. It's also the gender affirmative approach that leads to, in both trans youth and trans adults, increased positive well-being, decreased instances of anxiety and depression, and decreased gender dysphoria. It literally works. If somebody is trans and transitioning, and medically transitioning is the right thing for them, it literally improves their life, and in many instances literally saves their life. And there is a 1% regret rate. There's also quite a recent study that shows that on a 5-year follow-up, kids identifying as trans, 97.5% of them 5 years later still identified as trans. I'm realizing that we've not even made it off of the homepage, so let's go to About Us. The imagery they've chosen is really interesting. Let's speak about the psychology of this image. It is the torso of bodies of human beings with their heads cut off. This indicates a want for anonymity with being associated with this website. I have no fucking clue. It's just a weird ass image to choose. About Us, we're headless bodies. Yay. Over the past few years, there has been a global rise in the number of children being referred to gender clinics. There is no reliable scientific basis that you pay attention to, because there is out there. Transphobes just don't want to hear it. For the diagnosis of transgender,
Let me talk about lack of scientific rigor and evidence, whilst proving that scientifically and in terms of terminology, I know nothing about this community I'm speaking about.
For the diagnosis of transgender, people are not diagnosed as transgender. They're diagnosed as having gender dysphoria. That's what would happen if somebody went to a gender clinic, really showing that these people have no experience of the trans community or gender clinics or how they work. Or long-term research on the outcome of treatments. Shaba showed me a fantastic video recently, and it was somebody talking about how that is true for all medicine. Modern medicine is very much that, modern. Like vaccines, antibiotics, painkillers, treatments for certain diseases, like all of it is incredibly modern, incredibly new, and it is difficult for any area of medicine to have decades and decades of research behind it. The fact that we do actually have decades of use and evidence of use of puberty blockers is quite cool. That's pretty good by medical standards. It's another example of how generally like the kind of expectation for medicine is here, with there being a 14.5% regret rate generally among surgeries and many medications and many treatments being experimental. A lot of medicine is experimental. But when we look at trans people, the expectation for rigor and evidence and all of this is way up here. And like even a 1% regret rate isn't good enough. No, it's got to be 0. Even though with all other medicine, we would consider 14% regret rate pretty decent. You know, oh, and we need to have decades and decades of really rigorous research into every single medication and outcome that ever could possibly be. And it's so unrealistic. The standards that these transphobes set for trans healthcare to be at is impossible to achieve, and it is not achieved in any other area of medicine. So why is it expected for trans people? Is it actually care? Is it actually wanting science and medicine to give you evidence, or is it just not liking trans people and wanting to trip them up whenever you can? I think it's that one. I found the FAQ section. Aren't you just transphobic? No. We believe that transgender people deserve the same civil and human rights as all of us and should not face discrimination. How does that compute? As the term phobic literally means irrational fear, we want to make it very clear that we are not afraid of or prejudiced against transgender people in any way. This website sounds incredibly prejudiced. If we define transphobic, having or showing a dislike or strong prejudice against transgender people. It's not about a fear. Use of term. Well, isn't that funny? It follows a very similar pattern to people coming out as trans. The more visible trans people have gotten, the more loud transphobes have gotten. But you don't need to be afraid of trans people to be transphobic. This website clearly does show a prejudice against and is trying to shit on the gender affirmative approach, say that there is no scientific evidence for it, and inadvertently, whether they mean to or not, advocate for conversion therapy of kids who are coming out as trans. Why can't you just support trans people if you've got nothing against them? Our concern is children.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Whilst we have no objection to adults behaving in any way they choose, as long as they are not harming others, we also feel a responsibility to get things right for children, as they are the ones who may be harmed if the theories are wrong. This is just a roundabout way of being like, no, we don't approve of trans people. Because if you're trying to deny that trans kids can exist and you're like, the children, think of the children.
The children!
Then you're saying that people choose at some point in their adulthood to be trans. You speak to any trans person, they'll be like, I wish I'd found out sooner. I have a lot of trans friends and a lot of trans contacts, and I've never ever heard one of them say, oh, I wish I hadn't known until later. I wish I'd waited longer. What about trans people who knew they were trans from a very young age? We can't speak for individuals and their personal experiences, so get rid of this entire website. We do know, however, that the nature of memory is to project current awareness backwards in time in order to affirm present belief.
We cannot speak for people's personal experiences. We have no evidence. We have no personal experience ourselves either. So what we're going to do so that we can still legitimize our transphobia is say that trans people are making up the fact that they knew they were trans when they were kids.
I'll just say anything at this point. Okay. So you can support them. You can donate. Oh, what? Okay, what have they said they've done? Analysis of the contested concept of internal gender identity and the harms caused by the application of this ideology to children. So the fact they keep calling it an ideology, like if people are calling being trans an ideology, they're the ones with the ideology. Transphobia is an ideology. So what did you need money to do that for? Dissemination of research and evidence on medical interventions given to children on the basis of this ideology. Dissemination of research. So they don't even done the research themselves. They've just disseminated the research that they have chosen shows their worldview, which if you look at the majority and the ones that do the meta-analyses, those are the ones that show you that the gender affirmative approach is appropriate, including for trans youth. If you look at things like rapid onset gender dysphoria, well, that gives a whole other story, but is deeply methodologically flawed. Whenever transphobes speak about evidence and research that supports their ideology, they either refuse to give links and show you what they're talking about, or when they do, you read it and it's like, so this one is a philosophical opinion piece, that's not research or evidence based. This one is literally saying the opposite to what they're claiming it says, and this one actually has a lot of corrections and amendments that have been requested because of the flaws in the methodology. Oh, and this one's from the 1970s and has since been debunked by 10 other pieces of research. That's literally how it goes. And you read into it and it's like, it's either people just giving their opinion, or it's really, really old research that has since been updated and debunked, or it's flawed research that is coming from a very, very biased perspective, like rapid onset gender dysphoria, getting its sample pool of not the kids it was talking about, but the parents of those kids who frequent transphobic websites. Of course you are going to find a certain result. It's almost like they set it up to find the results that they wanted, or they've grossly misinterpreted it. And you read it and it's like, right, that was like an opinion sentence. And then if you actually read what they're saying about the research, it does not say what you think it says. They've also raised awareness of the politicization of childhood and child development in service of an activist social justice movement. Transphobes are the ones that have politicized trans people, including trans kids. Like, trans people, I just want to live our lives, but because of transphobes, our mere existence has now become political. Providing a voice of opposition throughout the media, newspapers, TV, radio, documentaries, and online platforms.
We're the ones that are there being shitty and being on the other side of the debate to stand up for what is sane in this world. Oh, the transgenders, how dare they?
It's just bullshit. They do have like screenshots up here of them on TV shows. When was the last time, hands up in the comments, when was the last time you saw a trans person appear on national TV where it wasn't a debate and they just had a really pleasant conversation where they could speak about their life, their experience, about something they're doing, and it wasn't met with this like rebuttal of like,
oh, but is this the right thing? And la 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 la.
Or there weren't people there and the trans person was literally just sat there having to fight for the fact that they are valid and deserve to exist in the world. Everything else on this list as well is just
Speaking here, doing this.
a 388-page report contains 32 recommendations and is a result of 4 years of work by Dr. Hilary Cass and her research team at the University of York, and an independent review of the science for children and adolescents at the Tavistock Gender Identity, GIDS. What they don't include, and they include like a couple links about it and stuff, what they don't include is an evidence-based critique of the Cass review on gender affirming care for adolescent gender dysphoria. Evidence-based critique. The Cass review has been so widely shat on because it's shit, but transphobes cling on to it. It is the new rapid onset gender dysphoria. So if you're interested in knowing why, you can go read this. You can also go onto Transactual, a really good trans website, and read through critiques of the Cass review here. The British Medical Association have called for a pause on the implementation of the Cass report's recommendations. More than 200 educational psychologists signed an open letter to express concerns about the Cass review. Academics have published a number of critiques focused on both the methodological issues and the inconsistencies in the report. Look at this. All of these are academic reports published as a critique to the Cass review because of how bad it is. So if you want to go read up about it, you can go read these. So the fact that they've got a whole section just for the Cass review, ridiculous. They also have a shop, which is a bunch of promotional material for schools. Like, just the thought that a website spreading this kind of misinformation and thinking they're doing like the good work, the good fight, yeah, we're protecting the kids. Do they actually believe that? Like, have they got to the point where they genuinely think they're doing something good? But the fact that people with these kind of viewpoints are creating materials for schools, like they've literally got a resource pack, £2 supporting gender diverse and trans identified students in schools. And for anybody who's not aware, using the term trans identified rather than transgender students is quite an anti-trans trope where it seems innocuous and it seems harmless and it seems like a perfectly fine language to use, but it isn't. And then they boil trans women and trans men down to like Tims and Tiffs and trans-identified males and trans-identified females, and it's just all very rude and bizarre. It's the same as like if people are using language like transgenderism, if somebody's saying trans-identified, it should set off a little bit of a red flag. I think we are done with the first one. Okay, so I don't want to go through the other websites I have in as much detail because I didn't realize I would speak so much, and then a lot of it gets really repetitive. So there's just a couple bits that I've seen on these websites that I want to talk about. So the first one is this website. Again, I'm not going to talk about who it is, but they say the biology of the human body. This is under their resources and their science section. So just having a look at how actually solid the science of these websites is. They said there is much debate about how society changes and how the law must reform to keep up. However, human biology has not changed. The sex of a baby is determined at the moment of conception. Haven't we heard that somewhere recently? Oh yes. Trump's definition of male female criticized by medical and legal experts, because what did he say? The executive order declares that there are only two sexes, male and female, and defines a female as a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell. Somebody with a lot more expertise than Trump, and I'm guessing the people who wrote that on the Transphobic website. This one is shockingly out of step with what we know from science. Kellen E. Baker, Executive Director of the Institute for Health Research and Policy at Health Services Network, Whittam Walker told ABC News in an interview. And also here, it's especially egregious that this order defines sex as starting at conception, which is impossible. So they've literally turned themselves into a Trump meme by saying that. It also completely ignores the existence of intersex people. And then the final website that I want to have a quick look at, they've already gotten onto the EHRC consultation justification. There is no justification for that pile of crap. Do you know what it says? If you do not know about what's happened, in April, the Supreme Court basically ruled, after a long and very costly fight from transphobes where J.K. Rowling donated £70,000 towards it. You know, they ended up spending like £250,000 on this. That money could have done so much good to actually help women's rights in various different areas, but no, they wanted to take away trans people's rights with that money. What a ridiculous waste. Anyway, April, the Supreme Court ruled that for the purpose of the Equality Act, sex would refer to biological sex. So basically categorizing trans men as women and trans women as men under the Equality Act. It's all really messed up and bizarre and wrong and nonsensical and not based in logic or science and completely coming from an ideology that has a lot of money behind it. But as part of that, the Equality and Human Rights Commission in the UK, the EHRC, released some interim guidance that was basically saying, oh yes, well, you know, trans women now can't use organizations and public areas like sports facilities, restaurants, workplaces, etc. Basically, trans women shouldn't use the women's and trans men shouldn't use the men's, and under some circumstances, trans men also shouldn't use the women's and trans women shouldn't use the men's. Not that trans people want to go into the wrong bathroom, but that basically means that if a trans person needs to go to the toilet in public, and there are not gender neutral facilities, or the gender neutral facilities really risk outing that trans person because they'd be the only person using them, then where is a trans person supposed to go? Yes, we will just shit in the middle of the aisle at Tesco. Great. So it really doesn't make sense. But unfortunately, there's an indication that the EHRC has ignored about 50% of the responses to this guidance. So here on the Good Law Project, which I would highly recommend following and checking out, the EHRC is ignoring trans voices. Leaked documents have confirmed that the EHRC is planning to ignore 50% of the consultation's submissions. And then what's happened is trans women to be banned from single-sex spaces under new EHRC guidance. The Equality and Human Rights Commission has been criticised by trans rights campaigners for its response to the Supreme Court's ruling. So basically, the EHRC is set to submit statutory guidance to ministers this month in response to the UK Supreme Court unanimous ruling that trans women are not legally women under the Equality Act. The new guidance appears to be similar to its interim guidance issued in the wake of the ruling, which has been criticised by trans rights campaigners as discriminatory and has seen legal challenges launched against it. So that's basically where we're at with that, and this website being transphobic in nature, of course, is like,
yeah, EHRC consultation guidance. Yes, we don't want to see trans people at all in public life. That's what this has been about all along.
which is what it is it's basically pushing trans people out of public life, particularly trans people who are early on in their transitions and are not always gendered correctly. This is a very, very scary time. They're also currently crowdfunding to keep men out of the ladies' pond, and what they mean is they are crowdfunding to bar trans women from accessing a woman's space, and they want to raise £50,000 to do that, and they nearly have. It's just disgusting. Like, think about all, like, these people are claiming that they're feminists and are doing this to protect women. Think about all the inequalities that women actually face, because none of them are to do with trans people. Trans rights and women's rights are not up against each other, and trans women, because that's who they're going after here, are not taking away rights from cis women, right? What we need to be looking at are things like the medical gender gap and the gender pay gap and the way that women are treated horrifically around the world. And it's just, why are they not doing any of this? Why are they not actually protecting any woman at all? Because this guidance that they celebrated is not good for women. We're already seeing increases of cis women being targeted in women's spaces because people think they're trans. If you just Google like cis woman harassed in bathroom, you get so many articles. Woman says Boston hotel guard told her to leave bathroom because she was a man. 2 cis women kicked out of a Boston hotel bathroom after one was ordered to prove sex. Lauren Boebert forced to apologize after trying to kick out a guy from women's bathroom at Capitol. A man mistook her for being trans in a Walmart bathroom, then she got fired. Masculine looking cis woman confronted by cops in Walmart restroom. JK Rowling says to photograph women in toilets just in case they're transgender. How lovely. How feminist. This is just one piece of evidence to show how transphobia actually harms a lot more than just trans people, obviously primarily trans people, but these cis women transphobes celebrating, thinking they've done something for women's rights, have done the opposite. This is hurtful, because also what there is evidence for is that trans inclusive bathroom policies are safer. No link between trans inclusive policies and bathroom safety, study finds. There is no evidence that letting transgender people use public facilities that align with their gender identity increases safety risks, a UCLA study finds. These transphobic websites will never talk about this kind of thing. The science of trans-inclusive bathroom bills. Research shows trans-inclusive bathroom bills are linked to public safety. Trans-inclusive bathroom bills linked to public safety. Okay? Also, just for something extra, because the first website went on so much about not letting trans kids just be themselves, the impact of bathroom discrimination on mental health among transgender and non-binary youth. So they used quantitative data from trans and non-binary youth aged 13 to 24, and they examined the association between experiencing bathroom discrimination and depressive mood. So over 50% of trans youth have experienced being prevented or discouraged from using a bathroom that corresponds to their gender identity. Nearly 60%. That is a ridiculous amount. And among the youth who experienced bathroom discrimination, 85% reported depressive mood. These findings suggest that preventing transgender and non-binary youth from accessing appropriate bathrooms is associated with harmful mental health indicators. This is literally just one example of so many examples of evidence, strong evidence, okay? And research findings that show that trans people being able to be themselves leads to increased mental well-being. Funny that taking away trans people's rights makes us a bit miserable, okay? And allowing us to just live as ourselves and access appropriate healthcare makes us a lot happier. Yay! So why can't people just leave us alone? That's what I don't get. So these people are celebrating the win. I'm going to blur them because we don't need to see their faces. Sex in the Supreme Court. I don't think they should be doing that in the Supreme Court. The judgment on the 16th of April for Women Scotland versus Scottish Ministers on the Effect of Gender Recognition Act 2004 and the Equality Act 2010 held that the term man, woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to biological sex. If you look at the Equality Act, it doesn't really make sense with this new component, because there are things now that contradict each other, where like technically protecting one group of people would be not protecting another group of people, and both are protected separately under the Equality Act. And it's like, well, how does that correlate with itself? Forgetting the whole purpose of this is that it's now factually inaccurate, because women who happen to be trans are now not being recognized as women, and men who happen to be trans and not being recognized as men. It's all just a joke. Anyway, this final one likes to raise money and harp on about the importance of sex. Yeah, when they don't actually understand the complexities of biological sex within humans. They're great that. And that is it for today. That's all I want to look at. I hope that it could be of some use at all. If you want something happier, you can go check out the little puds. I'll put the QR code back on screen with their little interchangeable eggs. Look at all these pride eggs. They're not available for very long. If you want to go check them out, that'd be great. And they will help raise money for organizations that actually support LGBTQ+ community, which is a much better use of money than all of these stupid transphobic websites who get money and do what with it? Take away trans people's rights? Go on television? I don't know. If you like this video, think about giving a thumbs up and subscribing, but no pressure. You can see some names on the screen of my lovely Patreons. Thank you so much. And a big shout out to my very important potato Patreons: Albar, Chloe, Dallin Irving, Eldon K, Gosco, Iona Balash, Jesse Entwistle, Marv Mallow, Max Makes Mods, Night Soul, Nesta, Rachel Raptor, Randy, Riley Ray, River Champagne, Sally Drew, Sarah Hobbs, Sienna Lamb, Slayer, Sugar Joe, TNS Mum, The Paisley Prince, The Third Hat Man, and Spring Metal Dragon. Thank you so much for your support. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.